Hello, I'm Natasha Dulson. I'm going to talk you through what it means to study A-level psychology here at Coombe. I'm one of the psychology teachers, worked here for, about 15 years. Psychology is the best A-level subject by far. It's the scientific study of the brain and behaviour. We look at humans, obviously, but we also consider how animals kind of learn and behave in particular ways. But we are really focused on human behaviour. We are asking really sort of fundamental questions about humans and why we behave the way we behave, what might cause us to behave in particular ways, how might our early experiences impact our behaviour, those sorts of things. These are the things that you are going to be debating with your friends and family for years and years to come. And just some of the things that we do, some of the questions that we do ask in psychology. So things like what is schizophrenia? So really serious mental health condition. What makes us attracted to partners? What is offender profiling? How do we treat criminals and prevent reoffending? How can good people carry out awful acts? Why do we make such unreliable eyewitnesses? Are just a few of the questions we ask. A few more: are we born or made? Do babies grow up differently if they're from a single parent household? Do violent video games cause aggression? And so on and so on. So you'll see there are lots and lots of areas of psychology that we try to delve into. And the really good thing about psychology, certainly from my point of view, is psychology isn't one of those subjects that sits in dusty old textbooks. Psychology is happening in the world as we speak. And so people who take courses in psychology learn about themselves and they learn about other people and the world around them, which I think is really exciting. Psychology is constantly changing. Being a science, there is constantly research happening in the different areas. And so it is ever changing and developing and evolving, which is really, really exciting. We have got a fab team of people that teach in the social sciences department. Mrs. Skelly heads this up. She's currently away on maternity leave, but she's due back in the new year. And then you'll recognise some of the names there, some of them you might not. So Mrs. Carew Rendell, she's actually head of history. She teaches criminology and sociology. I'm Mrs. Dulson, so I teach psychology and crim. I'm the SENCO as well, special needs coordinator. Mrs. Isaac, she works in sixth form, teaches sociology and crim. And then obviously you know Mrs. Osborne and Miss Webster, who is also a science teacher. Miss Osborne obviously is also an English teacher. So you've got a big range of experience here in the social sciences department, which really helps us to kind of bring psychology to life, I would say. So here, just a couple of minute video to show you what psychology is. So, why should you study psychology? Well, psychology helps you to, as we said before, really understand yourself and to understand the behaviour of people around you. But it does more than that. It enables you to think really, really critically about pieces of research that have happened. And it's that critical thinking, that analytical mind, that inquisitive, inquiring mind, which makes you an excellent student, helps you to go on to sort of further education, but also makes you really employable. When every job that I've been for, when I've said I've got qualifications in psychology, people are fascinated by it. It's because psychology is so exciting. Yes, it is fun, but it's also a tricky subject. So please don't come into psychology thinking, oh, it's going to be easy, because it is not. And I wouldn't be helping you if I said it was. It is a difficult subject. However, it's what we call stealth learning, where you'll be learning, you won't realise how hard you're working because you're finding the topic so engaging and so interesting and exciting, which I think is a good thing. A question that we always get asked as psychologists is, can we read people's minds? I'll let you into a little secret. I do kid with people and say, yes, yes, I can, and watch them take a step backwards. Actually, we can't. It's a science, as I've said a million times already. We can't read people's minds. We use scientific principles to try and investigate human behaviour. Because we're a science, we are then looking at research methods. We are considering the experimental method. We are analysing data. We are doing maths, we are looking at statistics, and we've got some biology in there as well. So lots of subjects that really overlap with psychology and are brought into the lessons. Another subject that works really well alongside psychology is sociology, and some of you may have been to the sociology talks, and we'll be looking at the PowerPoints as well. Where psychology is the study of the human mind and behaviour, so the brain and behaviour, sociology is looking at society and how humans, how people behave in society. And there are lots of overlaps with both of those subjects. So, for example, there are topics within sociology, which is crime and deviance, and we look at forensic psychology. In sociology, look at things like religion and the family, and really, really complement your studies in psychology if you take both of those subjects together. So, fantastic mix of subjects. So, what actually are you going to learn? Well, psychology, as with all the A levels, is a 2-year course. Obviously, there are mocks and assessments all the way through, but you do your formal exams at the end of year 2, and there are 3 exams spanning the 3 papers that we study. So paper 1 is introductory topics in psychology, so that sort of sets the foundation. So we do what's called social influence, so social psychology, so how we are influenced by people in society. So we look at research around obedience. Why do we obey? Would you give somebody an electric shock up to fatal volts if somebody in a lab coat looking official told you to do it? The answer is yes, you probably would. We look at things like conformity as well. So why do we conform? We look at how minorities can change the majority in society. So lots of interesting things there. We also look at memory. So why different parts to our memory, long-term, short-term memory, why we might forget, what strategies can help us to remember more. And then we look at it in a real-world sense. So how can all of this research and memory help the police to ensure that eyewitnesses are much, much better when they give testimonies when they've seen crimes? Because historically, eyewitnesses are pretty useless, to be perfectly honest. They are much, much better through the work of psychologists. Then we look at attachment. So attachment is what's called developmental psychology. So we look at how children develop from the minute they're born all the way through their life course. We look at how attachments develop. We look at the significance of attachments to primary caregivers. And we look at what might happen if those attachments don't form correctly, whether that child is going to have trouble for the rest of their life or whether they have the ability to kind of catch up. We then look at psychopathology. So psychopathology is clinical psychology, essentially. So we look at what it means to be normal in inverted commas and what it means to be abnormal in inverted commas, because we really don't like those terms, but we do have to look at them. And then we look at a series of conditions, so OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder, phobias and depression, and we consider how those conditions might have developed. So is it nature, is it nurture? and we think about treatment, so how we can help people to get better. Paper 2, that's where we've got the bulk of our research methods, and we do statistical tests within that. But I don't want you to be scared by that. I want you to go in with your eyes wide open that this is what we're going to be doing, but it's nothing to be scared of. It's very logical. I've seen students do really, really well in these papers, because at the end of the day, it's maths. It's kind of, follow the logical steps and you'll be fine. There's biopsychology, so that's looking at how your brain communicates with the rest of your body. We look at the structure and function of neurons. We look at the synapse. We think about brain damage. So what happens if you damage certain parts of your brain? Do you lose certain functions, or does your brain want to change and develop and regain those functions? Really exciting area of psychology that's developing so quickly. And the field of neuroscience, if anybody's interested in that, we talk about neuroscience quite a bit. We look at the different methods of scanning the brain. We also look at things like biological rhythms and sleep. So the stages of sleep that we go through, etc. We look at approaches as well. So there are different approaches in psychology. Very simply, that falls along the nature-nurture continuum. So learning theorists would say that we learn everything from our environment. The biological approach would say that the reason you behave the way you behave is because of your genes and your hormones, etc. So we look at a variety of approaches. Paper 3 we do in year 2. We do a topic called issues and debates. So again, think about things like free will determinism, nature-nurture, and then we choose 3 options from a selection. What we've chosen for the past few years is schizophrenia, so what it means to have schizophrenia, how it might be caused, what are the treatments, what's the impact in society, and for individuals of having that label. We looked at relationships. So do we form relationships because of biological reasons or because of our environment? We look at things like celebrity worship and online relationships and how they develop. And then we've also looked at forensic psychology, which is why people commit crime and what we can do to help them to not commit crime in the future. We also think about things like offender profiling, so how that is used to help to catch criminals. So you can see we cover so many topics in psychology, and if you are looking at potentially doing a degree in psychology, a lot of what you do in your first year will cover things that we've done at A level. So big wide range of subjects. I'll just spend just a very short time on this slide because we've already talked about it, but what we're training you to do all of the time is to think like a psychologist. So a psychologist is a scientist. It's somebody that's open-minded, empathetic, curious, looking for evidence all of the time, not just making claims because you think something is the case. You are actually providing scientific evidence to back up the things that you're saying, drawing conclusions, how you'll communicate that to society. All of these things are really crucial as a psychologist. And just add into that, there are sort of 4 main branches, I guess, within A-level psychology. So, and we've talked about them all already, but we think about scientific inquiry and critical analysis. We looking at research methods, so using the research to back up the hypothesis that we might be creating, to test the hypothesis, I should say, of what we might be investigating. We are always thinking about the real world application. So if we carry out a piece of research into attachment, what is the impact on that individual? How can this help people? Can it help social services? Can it help education, etc.? And then obviously your psychological knowledge. We're always applying it to cases, real life cases, to try and understand what the psychology says. But I don't want you to think that you just have to go and do a psychology degree and become a psychologist, because the career possibilities are endless with psychology. So there is work within the Home Office, which is something that I did for a while. You can be involved in research and development, work in education, social care, work for the police, human resources, marketing, work within the field of mental health. There are organisations that employ people with psychology backgrounds to help them with selling products. The possibilities are endless. At the end of the day, we are working on human behaviour, and so human behaviour can be used absolutely anywhere. What do you need to do psychology? So we request 5+ in English and maths. You've got to be able to construct an argument. As I said before, 10% of the subject is maths related, so you've got to be confident with maths. As I said, don't need to worry about that because we do teach you how to do the maths, but we would really like a 5+. Grade 6+ in science as well. It's an academic subject. We also, things like history, if you can write history essays and you got a good grade in history GCSE, we'd be interested in looking at you as well. We are, as I say, academic, scientific, and we're essay based as well, so you've got to be able to construct an argument and back up what you're saying with evidence. And then don't just take our word for it, there's a couple of student testimonials there. We never lose psychology students because they're not interested. People who come to psychology tend to stay because they love the subject so much, and very often people then go on and look at careers and degrees and whatnot in psychology. So yeah, absolutely fantastic prospects for somebody studying psychology. If you would like to ask any questions about this, please just contact the school or send me an email, and I'm more than happy to talk through any aspect of this. Thank you for listening.